feeling like I'm Akademiks. Can't ride no way.
I cannot find it. Oh, no, here it is. My bad. Shit. Fuck.
All right, today is the plea deadline date. So is the plea being accepted?
Rejected, Your Honor.
All right, so we'll need a jury trial date. I'm going to recall this. We're going to recall this for March 11th. And at that time, you will be given your jury trial date.
Okay. That'll work, Your Honor.
All right, so if you all can make sure you confer off docket to see what's a good date that works for everybody's schedule. I don't do special settings in this court, but I will take in consideration the fact that it's a date that you all have decided on.
That'd be great. We will confirm.
All right. All right, today is the plea deadline date.
Man, I feel like we could all learn a lot from we could learn a lot from Tay Kay. Tay Kay, clearly, if you ask me, I think he's learned a lot while being incarcerated. Unfortunately, he was stupid when he was out and young and free. He don't seem like he'll be getting out for the rest of his, young life, and he'll probably get out at a very elderly age. He's going to be taking the second one to trial, which here's the thing about this one. The first murder, he didn't even pull the trigger. Everybody copped the plea, but there was an ignorant way of, we're going to take it to trial and win. He took it to trial, and in Texas, they don't play. Everybody, the majority of people flipped on him. Okay? The majority of people flipped on him and ended up testifying against him. He got 55 years. He didn't pull the trigger. Now they claim he supplied the gun. Now in this next case, he's accused of shooting his own photographer. Apparently they were trying to rob his photographer and drive off with his video equipment in the back in a Chick-fil-A parking lot. The dude hops on the car because he's like, yo, my shit's in there. What the fuck? Y'all trying to steal my shit? And Tay Kay supposedly puts his hand outside with a gun, shoots the dude a couple of times. He falls off the vehicle, and they leave him in the parking lot to die. They're going to roast that nigga, Tay Kay. I'm sorry to tell you. This is Texas. This ain't one of them little soft cookie-cutter states. And everything's on goddamn surveillance tape. It's very unfortunate that I've seen some of his letters and writings since he's been incarcerated, and he talks about the influence other people had on him and how young he was and just how much he didn't know. When you take a life, they treat you like a grown-ass man. If you're down to take a life but you can't give one, nobody can be like, oh, but he was a child. Also, when you take a life and you charge with or you're accused of multiple murders and you're riding around basically shooting music videos with your poster in the background, that was never sustainable. You were never going to be let out to enjoy that career when you're making fun of the fact that the police can't catch you for you doing cold-blooded murders, right? Chick-fil-A, and who else? Sorry. Tay Kay. By the way, I still maintain his first mixtape was a classic. I kid you not. I think this was this the Tay Kay footage? It might have been. Might have been. Yeah, I believe this is it. Let's look. Tay Kay Chick-fil-A. They're going to give a time and a date. He's indicted for murder. Yeah, see? No, robbery. April 2017. April 2017. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the footage. Now, they're not going to release the footage where the guy gets killed. Police usually don't do that. They'll release the video that shows a car driving off, or they'll release another video showing somebody walking, but they won't show the actual death. But everything is captured on videotape, everything. What you're going to see here is the car after the the shots were fired and they were getting out of there. So apparently the guy was on top of this car on the windshield. Tay Kay shoots him like this. It's no way he beats this. It's clear as day, bro. Right? I'm not too sure what happened to the other people in the car, but probably going to repeat the same way. They're probably going to take pleas and they're probably going to tell on Tay Kay. When I look at his face and I see I could see somebody who has a lot on his mind, and I could see somebody who wished things played out very differently, and I could see someone who, even sitting in court, even when he first got to jail, he was trying to be a part of that ignorant shit still, probably thinking, oh no, I'm about to get out soon. Like everybody gets locked up and get out, right? Remember he was trying to quote unquote start a gang in jail. Every time I see him now, I see a man who's trying to at least exhibit like he's been reformed a bit. But I think it's too late. I think it's too late. He got 55 on the last one, and I think this one, they might give him 155. I'm sorry to say. Because this crime, if the allegations are true, is even much more heinous. Okay? He basically they were in the car with Salvador, that's the guy who died, and two other people. He was robbed of his expensive camera equipment and forced out the vehicle. Salvador jumped on the hood to stop the trio from getting away before the vehicle pulled into a Chick-fil-A parking lot on the north side. McIntyre is accused of pulling the gun and shooting him to death. They fled the scene, and this is what's going to get him 100 years. They left that nigga on the street to die. Yeah, they're going to look at it no matter what and say, y'all dealt with that nigga in cold blood, we got to deal with you cold-bloodedly too. I don't know, man. Every time I look at Tay Kay's face, man, I see. I've always told you, I'm not saying anyone is a cause for him to do that dumb shit, but I always thought that drill music influenced him, that he didn't realize the severity of some of the actions he was doing. But that also sounds like cope, and sounds like I'm almost copping a plea for him, because I don't care what music you listen to. I don't care what video games you play. Bro, if you are, and you don't have to be 18, like if you are even a teenager, if you don't understand that if you take a life, that's a very serious thing, I don't know what to say, bro. I'm not sure if they're chasing the. They might be doing. Are they looking for a death penalty? They might be. Texas, they always trying to get a nigga with. Let's see. I don't think it's a capital murder charge, which could carry the death penalty, but I don't think that they're seeking the death penalty on this one. He was sued for $1 million for a wrongful death lawsuit. Yeah. Okay, actually, let me see. They got any. I'm about to go feed my dogs real quick because I hear them crying. Did you ever listen to this shit?
Tay Kay has been in prison for the last 6 years out of a 55-year sentence given to him.
Give me 1
by
second.
a
Let me go check
jury.
my dog.
Prior to this, he was on house arrest for 8 months when suddenly he sent out a tweet stating he had enough. He and his best friend cut off their ankle monitors and said they were going on the run, and if police wanted them, they were going to have to come find them. It would take US Marshals a 3-month nationwide search when they eventually apprehended him on the other side of the country, with Tay Kay taunting them every step of the way. Eventually, on June 30th, 2017, he was captured. But he had one more trick up his sleeve to show the world. Just hours after his arrest, a music video to his song titled The Race was published on a YouTube channel. After social media got a hold of it, there was no going back. Almost overnight, Tay Kay would have a viral hit on his hands. People were now tuning into this story of a 17-year-old kid who ran from the police, made songs about it, and you couldn't even help but watch it. But nobody at the time knew the severity of his crimes. The blood of 2 innocent people had been shed.
Tamor McIntyre ever so slightly rolled his head to the side as a judge announced his 55-year prison sentence for the murder of Ethan Walker.
Now at 22 years old, he says he never had the chance to be an adult. One of his co-defendants, who was a white female, only got 10 years of probation. But Tay Kay was ultimately sentenced to 55 years in prison for just one of the murders. This led to him stating if he was white, he wouldn't have received such a harsh punishment. All he wants is a second chance.
You got the world going crazy right now? I heard something about it.
I was terrorizing, you was kicking rocks, nigga. I was fighting Jules, Nemo, you.
Tamor McIntyre was born June 16, 2000 in Long Beach, California, in deep Crips territory. Both of his parents were gang members, and even though his dad was always in and out of prison, his mom was still active with the Baby Insane Crips, while raising the 2 kids, him and his sister Kayla. But things really took a turn for the worse when his dad was doing a 7-year run in prison for a deal gone bad in 2002. Without a father figure around, it was hard for him to find guidance. Eventually, their mom was unable to raise them, and they soon found themselves in the foster care system, bouncing around from different families who ultimately didn't want them.
Been in foster care since we were like really young, like damn near all our life. We never stayed with our parents. We kind of stayed in different foster homes, bouncing around.
This was him and his sister's childhood as they stayed in the foster care system, and they said they never really experienced Christmas as a kid. Eventually, his mom did escape the gang life, and she relocated the family about 4 hours away to Las Vegas. They ended up only spending about a year there until 2009, and that's because his dad was released after serving his 7 years. Being forced to Texas was the last thing they wanted, but Tamor was enrolled in elementary school and then eventually middle school. Still, he and his sister felt trapped with their dad, who by now had started to abuse them badly for the smallest things. He didn't want to think about it, and he wanted to be anywhere else but home, so he stayed at friends' houses as much as he could. Now the streets welcomed him, and he welcomed the streets.
Bitch, I'm 15 and I don't fuck with 12. All you niggas Microsoft, so tell me. I love you.
In 2014, he was a freshman at Martin High School, but most of his time was spent freestyling with his friends. They called themselves the Daytona Boys. They were rowdy and loud and would rap and smoke weed whether they went to school that day or ditched. 3 people made up the Daytona Boys: Eric Johnson or Santana Sage, Jalen Bell or Pimps, and Tamor, who now rapped as Tay Kay 47. In addition, they had a manager named Ezra who was important to the team and handled everything behind the scenes. To them, Daytona Boys was a brotherhood, and the group knew they had something special, so they figured why not start uploading on SoundCloud. But even with music in his life, he just couldn't stay out of trouble. This old tweet shows a letter of him being expelled from high school after he brought marijuana on grounds. He didn't want to go back to school and he couldn't go back home, so nothing really mattered. Tay Kay would often sleep over Pimp's house at night, and after being kicked out of high school, they only grew closer. He was on his own at 15 years old. Now his full attention was on his music and social media, pushing the Daytona Boys as much as he could, being seen in interviews before anyone even knew who they were.
Tay Kay 47 from Daytona Boys.
Pimpy's from Daytona Boys. Shout out to my nigga Ezra.
And with their manager's help, they were even booking shows. After their shows would run into 2 a.m. into the night, they were in the streets doing what they believed they had to do, robbing, stealing, and toting guns, and anyone who got in their way would learn with death.
Fatal shooting involved an exchange of words between 2 carloads of people who just left a party New Year's morning 2016.
On December 31st, 2015, the Daytona Boys were at a New Year's show in Arlington and finished around 2 a.m. Santana Sage was the only one with the car, and he always drove everyone around, with Tay Kay and Pimps in the front and back. They left and pulled up to a stoplight when another vehicle pulled alongside them. From here forward, it's unsure what exactly happened next, but we do know that Santana Sage fired a gun into the other vehicle, killing a 21-year-old college student, Sarah Mushlanger, in cold blood. driving off with Tay Kay and Pimps as the passengers. He was later arrested after police used his Twitter account to match the vehicle.
It was a series of Twitter posts that they say led them to Johnson all the way from this New Year's Eve party that they say he attended.
His defense was that the Daytona Boys were being called racial slurs by the other car, and that provoked Santana, but he only meant to scare them with the gunshots. But it didn't matter. An innocent girl was dead, and her parents were left to wonder why.
We'll be okay.
Tay Kay and Pimps, however, were both minors and faced no charges. Their names weren't even mentioned in court. And when you can just walk away from something that big, it makes you feel invincible. After a 6-month trial, a jury only took 3 hours to find Santana Sage guilty and gave him 44 years.
Did Tay Kay testify in that case? If he didn't face no charges, I wonder if they forced him to testify. That's interesting.
Years in prison.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Eric Jamal Johnson, guilty of the offense of murder.
Tay Kay was still...
Yo, that's so crazy. I could see this nigga's heart beating right when he's listening to the verdict. Like, just look at his face.
It makes you feel invincible. After a 6-month trial, a jury only took 3 hours to find Santana Sage guilty and gave him 44 years.
You could see his heart beating
in prison.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Eric Jamal Johnson, guilty of the offense of murder.
Tay Kay was still only 15 years old at that time. He had no money, nowhere to live, and was not legally allowed to work. He needed a way to survive, and he had to do something. On July 26, 2016, Tay Kay, Pimps, and 5 others would formulate a plan. Sean Robinson, Lotharian Merritt, Ariana Barrett, Megan Holt, and a minor named Mia. Together they made a plan to rob Mia's boyfriend, 17-year-old Zachary Bellet, while he was inside of his home. Their plan would go like this. Zachary and his roommate Ethan were staying at a house located on the 1500 block of Mansfield, Texas. Tay Kay and the 6 others met in an apartment where they gathered weapons and talked over the plan. Pimps got brass knuckles and 2 of the men grabbed guns. Tay Kay was unarmed and says he told the group to have his back in case anything went down. Mia and her 2 friends Ariana and Megan left to Zachary's house around 5 p.m. They made it seem as if they just wanted to smoke and hang out. But what Zachary didn't know was that Tay Kay, Pimps, Sean, and Lotharian were waiting down the street in a car for a text message. It seemed simple enough, but that night their plans quickly fell apart. When the 3 girls arrived, they were surprised to see there was a lot more people in the home than they expected, and this pushed their plans back by hours. But they couldn't wait forever. 10 p.m. was approaching. Tay Kay and the others became impatient as well, feeling like it was now or never. The girls decided to go ahead with their plan and made their way to the door to unlock it when no one was looking. 4 men burst into the home, 2 of them armed with guns. Sean held Zachary at gunpoint and Lotharian held Ethan Walker at gunpoint, with Tay Kay and Pimps still looking for anything of value, but they came short of what they were promised. The next few minutes happened fast, but when they hesitated, Lotharian panicked and without even remembering doing it, he shot Ethan Walker in the stomach, killing him. Sean would panic at the same time after hearing the first shot go off, and he would shoot Zachary, striking him in his shoulder, but only injuring him. They knew they messed up, and it was only a matter of time of when they got caught. In this now famous video that shows Tay Kay crying during his interrogation, prosecutors and investigators were trying to figure out what exactly happened that night. He finally broke down and admitted to robbing, but he says he never shot or knew that anyone would be killed.
New at 6, video of teen rapper Tay Kay as police question him about his role in a deadly home invasion in Mansfield.
He had just turned 16 years old and was being held in juvenile detention for 2 weeks until an adult could pick him up. His sister Kayla had just bought her apartment after saving up for months and could now be his guardian since she turned 18.
I had got my apartment. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of family like that. In Kimbo, you get released. Juveniles get released. At some point, they're going to get released. You know, so like, he got released to me. I had my apartment. I was 18.
He was officially released by a juvenile court judge only if he agreed to wear a constant surveillance ankle monitor. Pimps was also released on house arrest and stayed close with Tay Kay, where they would talk online every night. Police kept Kayla's apartment on constant surveillance and pulled over anyone who left their building. Tay Kay spent most of his time online, tweeting out things like this, asking his friends to come over and record since he was on house arrest. Releasing only a few songs on SoundCloud at the time, he was saving the rest for something else. The world hadn't really heard of Tay Kay's name yet, but he saw a marketing opportunity where nobody else did. From July of 2016 all the way to March of 2017, almost 8 months, he stayed locked in his room thinking about his next move. The stress was getting to him. Although only 16, he was looking to be charged as an adult. He had no lawyer, no money, and didn't know what was going to happen to him. Then he had an idea.
Blast crack the phones like a bass. Yeah. Pop a nigga, then I go out my way. Then I go out my way.
On Sunday, March 26, 2017, late into the night, Tay Kay would post this now infamous tweet saying he was done with house arrest, and social media would spread it around. He called pimps and the two made a plan. They would both cut their ankle monitors off and make it clear to the world that this was all a game to them. And if police wanted them, they were going to have to play hide and seek. They needed to get out of town and their first stop would be 3 hours away in San Antonio, where they laid low for a few weeks. Tay Kay had no regard for being wanted. He was spotted by fans at malls or even ordering food at local spots. Pimps had been messaging a photographer for a few days named Mark Salvador who lived around the San Antonio area, and they were planning to meet up to take pictures. But in reality, Tay Kay and Pimps needed money, and they planned to rob an innocent man of his camera equipment. They planned to meet around 5 p.m. near an empty parking garage. Mark would show up and hop into the car to smoke, and when he got inside, they would take everything he had and then forcefully kick him out of the vehicle. But when this went down, things didn't go according to plan, again. Mark began yelling as all a game to them, and if police wanted them, they were going to have to play hide and seek. They needed to get out of town and their first stop would be 3 hours away in San Antonio, where they laid low for a few weeks. Tay Kay had no regard for being wanted. He was spotted by fans at malls or even ordering food at local spots. Pimps had been messaging a photographer for a few days named Mark Salvador who lived around the San Antonio area, and they were planning to meet up to take pictures. But in reality, Tay Kay and Pimps needed money, and they planned to rob an innocent man of his camera equipment. They planned to meet around 5 p.m. near an empty parking garage. Mark would show up and hop into the car to smoke, and when he got inside, they would take everything he had and then forcefully kick him out of the vehicle. But when this went down, things didn't go according to plan, again. Mark began yelling as loud as he could for help and he ran toward the street. They sped up after him trying to run him over, but he landed on the hood and held on as they drove off. They had to pull into a Chick-fil-A parking lot nearby to get him off. When the car stopped, Mark got up, stomped on the windshield as hard as he could, breaking it. This agitated Tay Kay and he allegedly leaned out the window and shot him, flinging his body onto the ground and leaving him there to die, unknowing that this was all captured by a nearby surveillance. Now only one thing mattered to Tay Kay and Pimps. They had the camera equipment and a little bit of money to get to their next stop, but they needed to stop by home in Arlington first. By now,
Oh, my bad, chat. Damn, muted Akademiks is back. What I'm saying is that, you know what the interesting thing about Tay Kay is? Like, I think you can make a real case that, you know, in hindsight, we liked his music. But it's pretty... The reason why he popped off is because he was a killer. Not saying the music wasn't good, but he killed to even be able to do the music. Like, he killed to do it. He killed for camera equipment. He killed to rob a nigga of camera equipment. He killed to get some money to be able to continue to do what he was doing. And the byproduct of that was a music career that really, it wasn't just the music that brought eyes on him. It was the story about him being on the run from said murders that made him pop. So essentially, this nigga didn't pop for music. This nigga popped for murders. That's it. He just popped for murders. Like, without the murders, we never hear of Tay Kay. Let's be clear. Without the murders, like, I'm not saying he's not talented. I'm not saying he wasn't. But if he ain't kill nobody, Tay Kay would never be popping.
San Antonio police had already tied Tay Kay and Pimps to—
Which, you know, when you think about some of these stories, I'm like, damn, man, he fucked up a great opportunity. This is probably one situation I'm like, he ain't fuck up no great opportunity. He wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for the murders. If he ain't killed nobody, he wouldn't be here. So how, like, what opportunity or like, it just doesn't make sense. Not with
the murder of Mark from last month at Chick-fil-A. Realizing they needed to leave immediately, they planned to go on a 23-hour car ride to New Jersey, where they knew a few people and a place to stay. Any money they had left would be used just to get there, and they needed every dollar. He even had someone willing to do a music video for free if he went to Jersey. By now, it was early June. Police were receiving tips on his whereabouts, posting wanted posters in areas they believed the two to be. Of course, Tay Kay only saw this as another marketing opportunity and decided to make a song about his race from the police.
He saw it as a marketing opportunity. When he saw it as a marketing opportunity, you know what he did? Create a song called "It's My The Race." Voice. I'm the Tay Kay. He's running around. He's showing they got my face on this, whatever. Poked fun at the whole process of people actually looking for him.
It was perfect timing, and to make it better, he wanted to release the song on his birthday. Those following his SoundCloud and Twitter were the first to hear the song, but there was no video just yet. Tay Kay, along with the help of a cameraman, would film the music video to The Race the following day, and he didn't charge him a penny for it. It would only take about a day to edit the video, but it was ready whenever Tay Kay was. The two spent their last weeks of freedom hiding and eluding the law in New Jersey. Marshals could tell they were getting close to capturing him, and at this point, it was simply a matter of when.
The Race. That song was fire.
Exactly 2 weeks after his birthday, both were eventually apprehended in a New Jersey home. A total of 3 months spanning 96 days, and The Race had finally ended June 30th, 2017. But Tay Kay still had one more trick up his sleeve, and he wanted the whole world to know his story before he went down. Just 2 hours after he was arrested, the music video to The Race was uploaded to YouTube. The story of this shooter kid who ran from the US Marshals and filmed a music video while doing it. People were instantly engaged, and social media pushed it to every corner of the internet. People couldn't help but tune into the song as it was getting hundreds of thousands of views every day, showing no signs of slowing down. Some of the first remixes and endorsements by other rappers showed up, and the hashtag #FreeTayKay was being posted, but nobody really acknowledged what he was now facing. Now, law enforcement wanted to make an example out of Tay Kay, and Texas shows no mercy for the crime of murder. A month after being arrested, a judge ruled to sentence him as an adult at 17 years old. But in the outside world, The Race had gotten almost 20 million views by now, and some record labels were taking notice. He would still sign a deal amid 2 murder charges. Using all of his past songs, they released a project titled Santana World, with The Race headlining the project, and of course, it was very successful. Over the course of the next 6 months, The Race would accumulate over 100 million views, including a remix from 21 Savage and Young Nudy, making him one of the only artists in history to have a massive hit song and never perform it. Yet he still appeared to have high hopes of beating his case and coming out the other side a free man. To him, living in jail was only a temporary thing, and he would soon be out. But now, early into 2018, sentences for the 2016 murder of Ethan Walker began being handed out. The first to go down was Megan Holt, who was sentenced to 20 years in February. The courts recognized her as the mastermind behind the whole thing, while Mia, Zach's girlfriend, had been cooperating and working closely with the police, and in exchange was only given a 10-year probation sentence. The dominoes around Tay Kay were starting to fall. He had already been denied bond, and now the state district judge was upset with the internet's support for him. Here's what he said: "It's my understanding that people throughout this country have free Tay Kay signs up, and this court has a problem with that." Just after his bail was denied, Letharian Merritt was also sentenced to 40 years after being named the person who shot Ethan Walker and the gunman. Later in June, the media reported that Tay Kay was being sued by Mark Salvador's parents for $1 million in damages for the Chick-fil-A killing. This is after finding out he had become a superstar since his capture almost a year before. The following month in July, the parents of Ethan Walker and Zachary Below would follow suit, seeking an additional $1 million from the profits made off of the race. While this is happening, Adam22 was able to get an exclusive 10-minute phone interview from jail where Tay Kay would tell the world he was going to be out soon.
That's crazy to think about. That you probably would have already seen the world right now if you weren't locked up. Like there's crazy amount of opportunities that be available to you right now.
Yeah. I mean, next year gonna be there. I'm gonna be out soon, hopefully.
But during this interview, he also made a huge mistake by admitting he had an iPad in his jail cell.
I got a tablet. Like I got an iPad. I be listening to music in this house.
Just days later, he would have a shakedown where the iPad was found, with Adam later even stating he felt guilty for it happening.
The management did not ask me to remove the part where he talked about having an iPad. And so then he gets in solitary, all kinds of whatever additional charges because he had an iPad and he's just in jail using the iPad.
By August, Tay Kay transferred from the Tarrant County Jail in Texas to a maximum security Long Evans Correction Center, being put into a solitary confinement cell for 23 hours a day. But he never lost his positive optimism, and he posted a picture of himself on Twitter. The caption read, "Live from the gates of hell."
Sipping the purple like spiral. She said she ain't heard from Tay Kay in a while. The image on my tears, the crocodile.
The murder charges for Ethan Walker were coming to a close, and another sentence was handed to Ariana
2 more minutes of
Barrett
this.
for
2 more
aggravated
minutes of this, and then
robbery.
we're done.
In exchange for her testifying against the remaining 3 men, she was only given 25 years.
Damn!
A week after that, Sean Robinson was given 40 years for the murder. Pimps and Tay Kay were still left waiting for their sentence, both indicted for a second murder charge of Mark Salvador. Pimps was even offered a deal to testify against Tay Kay, but he never turned his back. To him, it was still a brotherhood there, and loyalty was forever. But in November of 2018, Pimps would pay the ultimate price for his crimes, pleading guilty to 2 counts of aggravated robbery of Ethan Walker and Mark Salvador, being given 30 years. Just like that, Tay Kay's best friend was gone. Now he was the final man standing, and the world wanted to know what was going to happen to him, but no one as much as he wanted to know.
The jury deliberated for a little longer than 3 hours today here before deciding on that 55-year sentence. That song...
In July of 2019, his trial finally began. 3 years of evidence and testimonies being gathered, and prosecutors had a strong case. He pleaded guilty for aggravated robbery, but not the murder. His defense argued that he was a minor who played the least significant role, but it was apparent the jury had already heard enough. The lyrics for the race were legally being used against him, and they even stated that he thrived off the violence and showed no remorse for his actions. His trial only lasted 1 week, and by that Friday, the jury unanimously decided that he was guilty. Taymor says he was only 16 and misguided at the time when this all happened, claiming he was never given a chance to be an adult. His misguided childhood is sad, but should never be used as an excuse for taking the lives of others. Turning 22 years old from behind a cell, Tay Kay has definitely matured and is more open to talking about his treatment in prison. And he argues the question, is he rightfully owed a second chance to make things right?
There ain't no happy ending in this thing called life, man. There ain't no redo. So I would interview him, though. I would interview Tay Kay. All right.